Army, are you ready? What really happened in that moment? Everything seemed completely normal until Taehyung suddenly stood up and walked away. No warning, no explanation. Just a quiet exit that left fans replaying the clip over and over again. But here's where it gets interesting. The camera didn't cut immediately. And Jungkook's expression, it changed. Subtle but noticeable. His smile faded. His eyes followed the direction Taehyung went. For a split second, he looked like he was processing something no one else could hear. Army started asking questions. Was it just timing? A simple off-camera call? Or was there something more behind that unexpected walk away? The clip is short. The moment is quick, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. So what really happened? The moment didn't end when the screen faded. If anything, that's when everything truly began. Within minutes, clips of Taehyung walking away started circulating everywhere. Slowed-down versions, zoomed-in edits, side-by-side comparisons with past lives. Fans weren't just watching anymore. They were analyzing. Every blink, every breath, every micro-expression on Jungkook's face became part of a bigger question no one could quite answer. Because after Taehyung left, Jungkook didn't immediately speak. He stayed still for a second longer than usual, not frozen, just thoughtful, like he was deciding something. His eyes shifted slightly, as if listening to something off-camera. Then he adjusted his posture, forced a small smile and continued talking, but the tone felt different. Softer, more careful. Was it just the lighting, the angle, or was there a subtle shift in energy? Some fans pointed out that Jungkook began choosing his words more deliberately after that. Others noticed he avoided looking toward the direction Taehyung exited. And then there was that brief pause mid-sentence, the one that lasted barely a heartbeat, yet somehow felt heavy. What made it more intriguing was the timing. Taehyung's departure wasn't dramatic. No obvious sign of disagreement. He simply left, calm, composed, almost too composed. And that quietness is what made the moment louder. Speculation grew, but so did curiosity. Was it a simple schedule issue? A staff signal behind the scenes? Or something spontaneous that wasn't meant to be captured at all? Jungkook continued the live, interacting, smiling and answering comments, but viewers who stayed until the end noticed something subtle. His energy slowly returned, but not fully. It was like he was present, yet part of his attention lingered elsewhere. And then, just before closing, he glanced off-screen again in that same direction. It was quick, almost unnoticeable unless you were paying attention. But for those who were, it felt like a silent continuation of a conversation we weren't meant to hear. No explanations were given afterward. No clarifications, just silence. And sometimes silence creates more questions than words ever could. So, was it just an ordinary moment taken out of context? Or did we witness something real, something unplanned, slipping through for a split second before everything returned to normal? Maybe the truth isn't in what we saw. Maybe it's in what wasn't shown. The next day, the clip felt different. Not because anything new had happened, but because nothing had been addressed. No mention. No hint that the moment had even mattered. And somehow, that silence made it impossible to ignore. Fans began comparing the timeline. The exact minute Taehyung stood up, the second Jungkook's expression shifted, the way the atmosphere seemed to thin out, almost like the room had changed temperature. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was subtle. And that's what made it powerful. Then something else caught attention. After that live, Jungkook's next appearance carried a slightly different energy. He smiled the same way, spoke the same way, but there was a brief hesitation before answering certain questions. A fraction of a pause before laughing. To most viewers, it meant nothing. To others, it felt like a continuation of the unfinished moment. And Taehyung, he appeared later, calm as ever, unbothered on the surface. But there was one tiny detail people couldn't stop replaying. A short glance downward when someone mentioned the live. It lasted less than a second, yet it felt like a door closing before anyone could step through. No visible conflict, just layers. The more normal everything seemed, the more mysterious it became. Because if nothing happened, why did it feel like something did? Late-night discussions turned into long threads. Some believed it was purely coincidental, a simple off-camera cue or timing issue. Others sensed something more personal, something private that accidentally brushed against the public lens. But here's what made it even stranger. A fan pointed out that just before Taehyung stood up, Jungkook had been mid-thought. A sentence that never fully landed. When Taehyung left, Jungkook didn't finish it the same way. He redirected and shifted like he changed the ending in real time. Was that instinct, awareness, or just coincidence? Moments like these are fleeting. They slip by quickly. Yet, sometimes they linger longer than planned, not because of what was shown, but because of what was felt. And maybe that's the real mystery. Not whether something happened, but why thousands of people felt the shift at the exact same second. Maybe it was just timing. Or maybe, for a brief and unguarded moment, we saw something that wasn't meant to be seen. And if that's true, what else have we missed? Days passed, but the moment refused to fade. New content came out. New clips, new smiles. On the surface, everything looked untouched, polished, professional, perfectly normal. Yet, for those who remembered that split second, something felt slightly unfinished, like a page had been turned too quickly. Then, an older video resurfaced. It wasn't related at first glance, just a casual behind-the-scenes clip from months ago. But in it, there was a similar pattern. Taehyung stepping away unexpectedly, and Jungkook pausing for a fraction longer than necessary before continuing. Back then, no one questioned it. Now it felt different. Patterns only become visible when you start looking for them. Was this simply how they handled off-camera cues? Or was there an unspoken rhythm between them that fans were only now beginning to notice? The more people analyzed, the more divided opinions became. Some insisted everything was being overthought. Others believed subtle moments reveal more than dramatic ones ever could. And strangely, both sides had valid points. But then came another detail. During a later live, Jungkook laughed at a comment referencing that sudden walk away. It was brief, controlled. He didn't elaborate. Just a quick smile and a smooth transition to the next topic. Taehyung wasn't present this time. The room felt lighter, yet that unanswered reference hovered in the background. Why acknowledge it at all if it meant nothing? That tiny reaction reignited everything, because if it was insignificant, it could have been ignored. If it was sensitive, it could have been avoided. Instead, it was brushed past, not denied, not confirmed. Balanced, intentional, or instinctive. The mystery wasn't dramatic. There were no raised voices, just timing, glances, pauses, the kind of details most people would overlook. Yet somehow, thousands felt the same shift at the same second. That collective instinct is what made the moment linger. Maybe it was simply two people moving through a busy schedule. Or maybe there's a quiet language between them. One that doesn't need explanation. One that occasionally slips into view before being carefully tucked away again. And here's the part that keeps everyone watching. If one unguarded second could spark this many questions, what happens the next time the camera stays on just a little too long? Because sometimes the biggest stories aren't in what's said, they're in what almost was. As time passed, the quieter everything became. No clarifications, no behind-the-scenes explanations. Just a steady return to normal schedules, normal interactions, normal smiles. And yet, that one unfinished second continued to echo in subtle ways. Then, something small, almost forgettable, happened. During another broadcast, the atmosphere felt relaxed again. Light jokes, casual conversation, comfortable silence. But at one point, when a comment mentioned unexpected exits, Jungkook paused. Not long enough to seem obvious, just long enough to register that he read the comment. He smiled, and instead of answering directly, he said, "Sometimes timing is funny, right?" Before moving on. It was such a simple line, harmless, open-ended, but it felt layered. Timing? Was that all it was? Fans replayed it not because it confirmed anything, but because it didn't. It kept the mystery intact. It neither shut the door nor opened it wider. It just left it slightly ajar. Meanwhile, Taehyung's next appearance carried its own quiet intrigue. At one point, he mentioned how unpredictable live moments can be. He laughed about things happening off-camera that viewers never see. It sounded general, casual, but the choice of words felt precise. Unpredictable, off-camera. Never see. Was it coincidence that both of them separately referenced timing and unseen moments within days of each other? Or was it simply the nature of live broadcasts? The strangest part wasn't what they said. It was what they didn't say. No denial, no inside joke to clear the air. No obvious reassurance. Just professionalism and forward motion. And maybe that's why the moment continues to live on, because nothing dramatic followed. No closure, no explanation to neatly tie everything together. Just a quiet shift that only the most attentive viewers caught. Sometimes the absence of chaos is what makes something feel real. Because if it had been staged, it might have been exaggerated. If it had been serious, it might have been addressed. Instead, it lingered in that gray space. Too subtle to confirm, too noticeable to ignore. And here's the question that keeps surfacing. If it truly meant nothing, why does it still feel unfinished? Maybe the answer isn't in analyzing expressions or decoding pauses. Maybe it's in understanding that not every moment is meant for us. But then again, if it wasn't meant to be seen, why did the camera stay on? Weeks later, the moment should have been buried under newer headlines, louder clips, and brighter stages. But it wasn't. It lingered quietly in the background like a half-remembered sentence you can't quite finish. The world kept moving. Schedules tightened. Appearances multiplied. Smiles returned in full clarity. And yet, for those who remembered that 1 second, everything after felt like a continuation rather than a reset. Then came an event where they stood side by side again. Nothing unusual at first glance. Comfortable distance, familiar energy. The kind of presence fans have seen countless times before. Cameras flashed. Reporters called out questions. They answered smoothly. But during a brief lull, something almost invisible happened. Taehyung shifted slightly closer. Not dramatically, just a small step. Jungkook noticed. His posture straightened almost instinctively. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second. No smile, no exaggerated reaction, just recognition. And then they both looked away at the exact same time. It was synchronized in a way that didn't feel rehearsed. That clip, of course, spread instantly. Some called it normal coordination. Others felt it was the quiet aftermath of that unfinished live moment. Not tension, not conflict, just awareness, because awareness changes things. After that day, fans noticed they seemed more controlled when on camera together. Not distant, just careful. Words measured, reactions timed. Almost as if they both understood how quickly a single second could turn into weeks of speculation. And that realization added another layer to the mystery. What if the original moment wasn't dramatic at all? What if it was simply too real? Live broadcasts are unpredictable. They capture what polished edits often smooth over. A natural reaction, a spontaneous decision, a human pause. And maybe that's what people saw, not a secret, not a problem, just something unfiltered. But here's what keeps the story alive. During a later interview, Jungkook was asked about handling unexpected situations on camera. He answered calmly, saying, "You just adapt and keep going." Then he added, almost thoughtfully, "Not everything needs to be explained." It was a general statement, at least that's how it sounded. But placed next to everything else, the timing, the glances, the silence, it felt intentional. Not everything needs to be explained. Maybe that's the truth hidden in plain sight. Maybe the reason it feels unfinished is because it was never meant to have an ending. Some moments exist without resolution. They pass through the lens, leave a ripple, and continue quietly off-screen where cameras don't follow. And maybe that's what makes it so compelling, that we saw the beginning, that we felt the shift, but the middle and the end, those might have happened somewhere the camera didn't stay long enough to capture. And if that's the case, was that sudden walk away really the story?